Imagine waking up every morning knowing that the fate of an empire rests on your shoulders. That every decision you make, every word, every hesitation, could shape the destiny of millions. You are surrounded by war. Betrayal waits behind every marble pillar. A plague ravages your people. Your own body begins to fail you. And yet, you remain calm. Still. Unshaken. You don't seek escape, you seek understanding. You don't curse the storm, you become the eye of it. This was Marcus Aurelius, the man who had solutions to every problem in this world. Not because he ruled Rome, but because he ruled himself. Marcus Aurelius wasn't born a warrior. He wasn't born a king. He was born a thinker, a student of philosophy, a young boy who loved silence more than applause. And yet destiny, or perhaps the gods, had other plans. He would one day become the most powerful man in the world. The Emperor of Rome, and the last of the 5 good emperors. But what made Marcus truly extraordinary wasn't his crown. It was his mind. While other rulers sought to conquer nations, Marcus sought to conquer his emotions. While others demanded obedience, he demanded discipline, from himself. While others were slaves to pleasure, anger, and pride, Marcus was free. He believed that the only true power any man could possess was the power to control his mind. 1. The Emperor who never wanted to rule. Marcus Aurelius was born on April 26, 121 AD, into a noble Roman family. From a young age, his life seemed destined for greatness. But unlike most who dreamed of power, Marcus was drawn not to politics, but to philosophy. He was mentored by some of the greatest minds of his time. Among them was Junius Rusticus, who introduced him to the writings of Epictetus, the former slave who taught that no man can be enslaved if he controls his thoughts. That idea struck young Marcus like lightning. That freedom wasn't found in status or wealth, it was found within. He began to live like a Stoic even as a teenager. Sleeping on hard floors. Avoiding luxury. Writing private reflections to remind himself of humility and gratitude. Those reflections, never meant to be published, would later become one of the greatest books ever written, Meditations. A book not written for fame, but for survival. In Meditations, Marcus never speaks like an emperor. He speaks like a man trying to stay sane in a collapsing world. Every page begins not with arrogance, but with honesty. Today I will meet people who are selfish, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful. He knew what awaited him, and yet he didn't despair. He reminded himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That single line became his weapon, not a sword, not a legion, but a philosophy of endurance. 2. The burden of power. Marcus Aurelius never wanted to be emperor. He wanted to study, to think, to live quietly among his scrolls and philosophers. But fate rarely asks what we want. It demands what we are capable of. When Emperor Antoninus Pius adopted him as his son and heir, Marcus's world changed forever. Overnight, the quiet philosopher became a future ruler. He would soon discover that wisdom and power are not comfortable companions. To most men, the throne was the highest dream. To Marcus, it was the highest test. Because power is not measured by how many obey you, but by how well you can obey yourself. As emperor, Marcus faced the same temptations every powerful man does. Flattery. Greed. Anger. Pride. And yet, he resisted them, not by force, but by reason. He reminded himself daily. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. He believed that a ruler who cannot master his mind will eventually destroy his empire. So every morning, Marcus practiced mental discipline, the art of preparing for chaos. He called it the morning meditation. He would rise early, before the noise of Rome began, and remind himself of this truth. Today I will meet interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to ignorance of what is good and evil. That was his armor. Not steel, but self-awareness. While other emperors began their days surrounded by slaves and luxury, Marcus began his in silence. Training his mind to remain steady, no matter what the day brought. War, plague, and betrayal. Then came the true tests of his philosophy. A deadly plague swept across the empire, killing millions. His generals rebelled. Barbarians invaded from the north. And even within his palace, treachery brewed. Most emperors would have collapsed under the weight. But Marcus Aurelius faced it as he faced everything, calmly. When the Antonine plague struck, wiping out entire cities, Marcus did not flee to the countryside like others did. He stayed in Rome, tending to his people, writing, meditating, searching for clarity amid chaos. He did not ask, "Why me?" He asked, "What can I learn from this?" To Marcus, every difficulty was not a curse, it was a classroom. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That line would later become one of the most powerful Stoic teachings in history. The obstacle is the way. When war erupted on the empire's northern borders, Marcus didn't delegate the danger, he went himself. He led his legions through harsh winters, sleeping in tents beside soldiers, enduring the same hunger and cold they did. Because power is not measured by how many obey you, but by how well you can obey yourself. As emperor, Marcus faced the same temptations every powerful man does. Flattery. Greed. Anger. Pride. And yet, he resisted them, not by force, but by reason. He reminded himself daily. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. He believed that a ruler who cannot master his mind will eventually destroy his empire. So every morning, Marcus practiced mental discipline, the art of preparing for chaos. He called it the morning meditation. He would rise early, before the noise of Rome began, and remind himself of this truth. Today I will meet interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to ignorance of what is good and evil. That was his armor. Not steel, but self-awareness. While other emperors began their days surrounded by slaves and luxury, Marcus began his in silence. Training his mind to remain steady, no matter what the day brought. War, plague, and betrayal. Then came the true tests of his philosophy. A deadly plague swept across the empire, killing millions. His generals rebelled. Barbarians invaded from the north. And even within his palace, treachery brewed. Most emperors would have collapsed under the weight. But Marcus Aurelius faced it as he faced everything, calmly. When the Antonine plague struck, wiping out entire cities, Marcus did not flee to the countryside like others did. He stayed in Rome, tending to his people, writing, meditating, searching for clarity amid chaos. He did not ask, "Why me?" He asked, "What can I learn from this?" To Marcus, every difficulty was not a curse, it was a classroom. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That line would later become one of the most powerful Stoic teachings in history. The obstacle is the way. When war erupted on the empire's northern borders, Marcus didn't delegate the danger, he went himself. He led his legions through harsh winters, sleeping in tents beside soldiers, enduring the same hunger and cold they did. Imagine that. The emperor of the world's greatest empire, living in a war camp, writing by candlelight, reminding himself not to lose his soul. Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. While men around him sought pleasure and fame, Marcus sought only virtue. The strength to do what is right, even when no one watches. 4. The Stoic solution, mastering the mind. What made Marcus Aurelius different was not that he avoided pain, but that he accepted it as part of life. He realized that most of human suffering comes not from what happens, but from how we think about what happens. If your mind is weak, every problem feels unbearable. But if your mind is disciplined, no problem can break you. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That sentence alone has saved countless lives across centuries. It is not just philosophy, it is therapy, strategy, and spiritual armor combined. Marcus understood that emotions, left unchecked, turn kings into slaves. So he developed habits that any of us can use today. Pause before reacting. Never let anger be your first language. Focus on what you can control. If you cannot change it, accept it. Detach from ego. Praise and blame mean nothing if they don't change the truth. See every challenge as training. Life's difficulties are the gym of the soul. He didn't speak these as empty words, he lived them every single day. Where others saw enemies, he saw lessons. Where others saw loss, he saw opportunity for strength. He wrote, "The universe is change, life is opinion." To Marcus, reality was not cruel, it was simply neutral. It was the mind that painted it as tragedy or triumph. And that is why Marcus Aurelius seemed to have a solution to every problem. Because his philosophy made him unbreakable. He didn't look for the perfect world, he learned to remain perfect in an imperfect one. 5. The daily practice of a Stoic king. Even as emperor, Marcus practiced daily exercises to keep his soul clean. He wrote meditations not for anyone else, but for himself. It was his private dialogue, his therapy, his mirror, his confession. Every night, he would reflect. What did I do today? Where did I fall short? What can I do better tomorrow? He called this the evening examination. He believed that self-awareness was the highest form of power. A man who cannot look at himself honestly will never master anything in life. Marcus trained his mind the way athletes train their bodies. He practiced gratitude daily, even amid suffering. When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. To Marcus, every sunrise was a new chance to live with integrity. He knew death could come at any moment, and that made life sacred. It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live. He learned to find peace not by avoiding difficulty, but by aligning himself with nature's rhythm. Accepting that everything born must also die. And yet, in that acceptance, he found something immortal. 6. Lessons for the modern world. More than 1,800 years have passed since Marcus Aurelius walked the marble halls of Rome. The empire is gone. The statues have faded. But his words, his wisdom, still breathe. Because human nature has not changed. We still wake up every morning facing the same battles Marcus did. Not wars with swords, but wars within ourselves. Wars against anxiety, anger, overthinking, fear, and exhaustion. We scroll endlessly, chasing what we cannot control. We compare, complain, and collapse under invisible pressures. We demand peace, yet feed our minds with chaos. Marcus would tell us, "You become what you give your attention to. If you focus on noise, you'll live in noise. If you focus on virtue, you'll find calm." He would look at our world today, the distractions, the division, the digital storms. And he would not be surprised. Because in his time, too, people were obsessed with gossip, greed, and appearances. He saw senators chasing vanity, generals chasing glory, citizens chasing comfort. And he warned them all. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Marcus's world was collapsing under the weight of corruption and war. Ours, under the weight of distraction and self-doubt. But the medicine is the same, inner discipline. He would remind us that happiness does not come from having more, but from wanting less. That peace does not come from controlling others, but from controlling ourselves. Lesson 1: The Power of Perspective. Marcus believed that most suffering is just a misjudgment of reality. When something bad happens, a betrayal, a loss, an insult, our first instinct is to say, "This is terrible." But Marcus would ask, is it really? Or is it simply unexpected? He wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." That doesn't mean pretending pain doesn't exist. It means realizing pain only has the power you give it. Imagine applying that in daily life. A rude coworker, a lost opportunity, a failed plan. Instead of collapsing, you pause and think. This cannot ruin me unless I allow it to. That pause, that small moment of awareness, is where Stoicism lives. That's how Marcus turned problems into peace. Lesson 2: Control the controllable. Marcus's world was filled with uncertainty, just like ours. War, disease, death, politics. He had no control over those things. But he realized something revolutionary. You cannot control the world. But you can always control your response. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." This is what modern psychology calls cognitive reframing. A concept that Stoicism mastered nearly 2 millennia ago. When your mind learns to separate what you can control from what you can't, peace becomes possible. And that's the secret to Marcus's power. He ruled an empire by first ruling his thoughts. Lesson 3: Accept impermanence. Marcus lived surrounded by death. He buried 8 of his 13 children. He saw friends betray him, soldiers die, empires crumble. Yet he wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." He didn't say that to sound wise. He said it to survive. He understood that everything we love will one day fade. Our youth, our possessions, even our lives. But by accepting that truth instead of fearing it, we free ourselves from suffering. Imagine if we lived like that today. Grateful instead of greedy. Present instead of distracted. Calm instead of anxious. Marcus teaches that peace begins not when life is easy, but when we stop fighting what already is. Lesson 4: Practice humility. Despite being emperor, Marcus constantly reminded himself, "Soon you will have forgotten all things, and all things will have forgotten you." He didn't say that to sound poetic. He said it to kill his ego before it could kill his peace. He knew that pride blinds us. It makes us reactive, defensive, arrogant. But humility opens us to truth. When you realize how small you are in the grand design of the universe, suddenly, small problems lose their power. That's why Marcus never chased glory, he chased virtue. He didn't want to be remembered as a ruler. He wanted to be remembered as a good man. And that is the most timeless lesson of all. Lesson 5: Serve something greater than yourself. Marcus believed that meaning comes not from comfort, but from contribution. He wrote, "What we do now echoes in eternity. Every act of kindness, every moment of patience, every choice to do what's right. These are the seeds that outlive us." He ruled Rome not for power, but for duty. He saw himself not as a master of men, but as a servant of reason. To him, leadership meant service, not status. Imagine if our modern leaders lived by that. Imagine if we all did. The world would look very different. 7. How Marcus Aurelius solved problems we still face today. Let's bring Marcus's wisdom to our world. Because the same principles that guided an emperor can guide a student, a parent, a worker, anyone trying to survive modern life. Problem 1: Stress and overthinking. Marcus faced stress beyond anything we can imagine. Plagues, wars, conspiracies. Yet he wrote, Today I escaped anxiety. Or no, I discarded it, because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. He teaches us that stress doesn't come from reality, it comes from resistance. When you stop fighting what's happening and focus on what you can do, peace replaces panic. Every time you catch yourself overthinking, repeat his words. You have power over your mind, not outside events. That is your shield. Problem 2, relationships and betrayal. Marcus was betrayed by his closest allies. But he didn't become bitter. He understood that people act from ignorance, not evil. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial. That may sound harsh, but it's not pessimism. It's preparation. When you expect imperfection, you stop being surprised by it. You respond with patience instead of pain. That's Stoicism, not coldness, but clarity. Problem 3, loss and grief. Marcus lost more than most men could bear. Yet he wrote, "Don't imagine that something is good for you if it makes you betray a trust, lose your sense of shame, or desire something that needs walls and curtains to hide it." To him, grief was sacred. A reminder that love existed. But he refused to let sorrow turn him cruel. He accepted death as a teacher. Proof that every moment is precious. Problem 4, failure and uncertainty. Marcus ruled during a collapsing empire. And yet he never gave up. When things went wrong, he didn't complain, he adapted. He wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." That one sentence can change your life. Failed business? Betrayed friend? Broken plan? Don't run, reframe. Ask, how can I use this? That mindset turns obstacles into power. Problem 5, finding meaning. Marcus believed that life's purpose isn't pleasure, it's progress. Every day, he tried to be just a little wiser, a little calmer, a little kinder. He didn't seek perfection, he sought alignment with nature, truth, and virtue. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's the essence of Stoicism. Less talk, more transformation. If we lived that way, half of life's confusion would disappear. The eternal flame of Stoicism. In the end, Marcus Aurelius died not surrounded by luxury, but by silence. He passed away in 180 AD, in a small military camp on the empire's frontier. Still serving his people until his final breath. He left behind no gold, no monuments to his ego. Only words. Words that still guide the broken, the anxious, the lost. Words that remind us that no matter how dark life becomes, we are never powerless. Because we always have power over our mind. He wrote, in his final reflections, "Soon you will be ashes or bones. A mere name, or not even that. But if you do good in this brief time, it will shine forever." That is the legacy of Marcus Aurelius. Not an emperor, not a philosopher, but a human being who mastered the art of peace in a world of chaos. So when life overwhelms you, when the world feels heavy, remember this. You don't need to control everything. You just need to control yourself. You don't need to solve every problem. You just need to respond with wisdom. Because the true solution to every problem in this world was written long ago, in the mind of a man who conquered the greatest empire, and yet remained humble enough to conquer his own heart. Marcus Aurelius, the man who had solutions to every problem in this world.